My name is Eliza Shepherd. When I was 8, my sisters were whisked off to Disneyland while I was quietly dropped at my aunt's house like a forgotten suitcase. 2 decades later, I returned the favor, right in front of my sister's smug little face, as security hauled in $5.5 million in cash and her jaw hit the marble floor. You don't forget injustice. You outgrow it, and sometimes you use it. Where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments. I want to know where all the strong, quiet ones like me are standing up for themselves. Sacramento, California. A Saturday in late spring, and our old living room was bursting with chaos. The kind that only comes with roller coaster tickets and sugary excitement. I was 8. My sisters, Marla and Melissa, were already in their sneakers, Disney backpacks swinging off their shoulders as they pranced in front of the TV. "Mom, I found my mini ears." Melissa screamed like she was announcing the second coming. "Don't forget sunscreen," my father called from the hallway, zipping up the big purple suitcase with dad-level effort. I sat on the couch, my own small duffel bag tucked on my lap. It was pink, faded, and lighter than my disappointment. "Ready, sweetheart?" My mom, Laurel Shepherd, breezed in with the same smile she used when she gave us chores disguised as choices. "Aunt Carol's so excited to see you." "Wait. What?" I looked at her, the room blurring for a second. "You're not coming to Disneyland," she said like it was a compliment. "You're more quiet, sweetheart. Carol will enjoy your company. It's a special kind of trip for you." Special. Like last time when special meant I got to sit out of the school play because Marla got strep and Mom couldn't drive me. "You'll have your own room," she added, as if that made up for Space Mountain. Marla cackled from the hallway. "Try not to cry when we post from the castle." My hands tightened around the strap of my bag. "Can't we all go?" I asked softly, already knowing the answer. Dad spoke up, adjusting his baseball cap without meeting my eyes. "Carol's house has a garden. You'll love it, kiddo," Melissa snorted. "Have fun playing chess with the squirrels." The suitcase felt heavier in my lap. I nodded. Not because I was okay, but because that's what they expected from me. The quiet one. The agreeable daughter. I didn't cry, not when the car left. Not when the castle photos arrived later that night. Not even when I saw the group shot with Goofy and realized they'd all worn matching shirts that said Shepherd Squad 5. I wasn't even part of the shirt. But I did cry later once. On Aunt Carol's scratchy guest bed, under a quilt that smelled like cinnamon and lavender, I let silent tears slide into the pillowcase. Then I promised myself, next time they try to leave me out, I won't just disappear quietly. I was going to learn everything they thought I didn't need to know. And I was never going to be the quiet one again. Santa Rosa was quiet in a way I hadn't known a home could be. Aunt Carol's house sat at the end of a sleepy cul-de-sac, a white one-story with blue shutters, and a small wooden swing in the front yard. No yelling, no rushed packing, no drama. Just birdsong and the faint creak of wind chimes above the porch. I remember stepping inside and immediately noticing the difference. It smelled like peppermint and paper. "You like raspberry tea?" Carol asked as she set down my bag with a grace my mother never had time for. I nodded, still clutching my stuffed dog, Muffin, like a lifeline. She didn't ruffle my hair, didn't call me sweetie pie in a way that felt like a sedative. She just gave me a gentle look that said you're safe here. That first evening, she showed me to a guest room with pale yellow walls, one small bookshelf, and a view of the garden. "This is your space. Door locks if you need it. No one barges in." I didn't realize how revolutionary that was. Dinner was simple, grilled cheese and tomato soup, but she set the table with real cloth napkins and lit a small candle between us. We didn't talk about my parents, or Disneyland, or what it felt like to be left behind. Instead, she asked, "You ever played chess?" I shook my head. "Good," she smiled. "Then I have a chance." She pulled out a wooden board so old the white squares were almost ivory. I sat across from her, confused but curious as she moved the pieces slowly, letting me mimic her. "That's your knight," she said. "It doesn't walk in a straight line, it surprises people." I watched that little horse-shaped piece with new interest. The knight was the odd one out, unpredictable but still powerful. For the next hour we played. She explained things gently. Never corrected me with a huff. When I made a mistake, she just said, "Now, what do you think that move taught you?" Nobody had ever asked what I thought before. By the end of the game, yes, she won. I was smiling for real. Not a fake one for a camera, not a forced grin to keep the peace. Just quiet joy. That became our ritual. Dinner, dishes, then chess, sometimes checkers, sometimes books. sometimes just sitting in silence, side by side, watching the stars from the porch. In the mornings, she read the newspaper at the kitchen table, circling parts and sliding them over to me. "Read that headline aloud. Dow Jones rebounds after sluggish quarter," I read, barely understanding the words. She sipped her tea. "We'll make sense of it, one term at a time." By the third morning I asked, "What's a stock?" She folded her paper, set it aside, and smiled like I'd passed a secret test. "It's a piece of something bigger," she said. "You own a slice. And when that something grows, so does your slice." She explained it all like it was a game I could win if I just paid attention. Like knowledge wasn't a chore, but a secret key she was slipping me when no one else was looking. "One day, Eliza," she said, setting a quarter on the table, "you'll understand compound interest better than any Prince Charming ever could." That line stuck with me. Not because I understood it then, but because she said it like she believed I would. She didn't treat me like I was too young, or too sensitive, or too much trouble. She treated me like someone worth investing in. The week passed in a rhythm of peace I didn't know I'd craved. She let me explore her garden, picking strawberries and talking to bees. She showed me how to balance a checkbook, not that I had one, but the notebook she gave me with pretend deposits and withdrawals made me feel important. One afternoon, she pulled a book from her shelf. "The Intelligent Investor." "You won't understand most of this now," she said, placing it in my lap. "But one day you might surprise yourself." I flipped through the pages, the text dense and intimidating, but I held on to it like it was treasure, because Carol had given it to me. On my last night there, we didn't play chess. She made cocoa and we sat on the porch wrapped in blankets. "You're sharp, Eliza," she said. "Not just smart, sharp. You pay attention in ways most people don't. Don't let anyone convince you that being quiet means being lesser." I didn't know what to say. No one had ever spoken to me like that before. Not my teachers, not my parents, not even myself. So I just nodded, heart pounding, and sipped my cocoa. That night before bed, she tucked a small envelope into my suitcase. Inside was a folded index card. In neat handwriting, it read, "Never play a game where the rules only serve the loudest voice." I didn't fully understand that either. Not yet, but one day I would. The casket was closed. That was Carol's wish. No spectacle, no performance, just clean closure. I stood in the second pew of the modest chapel, my hands folded around a dark leather folder stamped with the gold seal of her attorney. My navy suit, crisp and somber, felt like armor necessary against the stairs starting to flick my way. "She left everything to Eliza." The whisper came from my left, cousin Tasha, no doubt. Her tone wasn't grief. It was disbelief, maybe envy. "She barely saw her the last few years," murmured someone else, not even bothering to lower their voice. I didn't turn to acknowledge them. Carol had hated gossip. She used to call it cheap drama for the underbooked. She also believed in timing, and hers, as always, was precise. The will reading had been scheduled just after the funeral. Not before, not delayed. No room for speculation to twist into a circus. I stood beside her casket, fingers brushing the edge, and whispered, "You were always 3 moves ahead." The chapel was sparsely decorated, white lilies, some candles, a few framed photographs. No slideshow, no eulogies. Just quiet jazz playing over the speakers and the scent of her peppermint lotion still faintly lingering on my scarf. She hadn't wanted speeches. But if I'd given one, I would have said this: "You changed my life in a week. You saw me when no one else bothered. And everything I've built, every quiet victory, I owe to the way you taught me to play the long game." After the service, I slipped out through the side entrance while the family swarmed the front doors. Carol would have approved. The lawyer's office was 2 blocks away, tucked above a flower shop in a sunny room with tall windows and a ticking clock that filled the silence like a metronome. Mr. Greaves was exactly as I remembered him, lean, sharp-eyed, with hands that fidgeted only when others spoke too much. He opened the folder and began reading aloud the legal language, but I hardly heard it. I was still trying to connect the words from the chapel. "She left everything to Eliza." The house, I expected. Carol and I had stayed in touch through letters, long phone calls every few months, and one annual chess match each Thanksgiving. But the firm, when he handed me the document, I scanned the letterhead, Shepherd and Witt Investments. Carol's boutique firm. Modest, yes, but respected. "She trusted you implicitly," Mr. Greaves said, his voice gentle. "She never married, never had children. You were her legacy." "I'm not a licensed advisor," I murmured, heart racing. "I work in finance, but she knew exactly where you were in your career, said you'd be ready for more before you thought you were." He pushed a second envelope across the desk. She also left you a letter, said you'd need this more than instructions. I opened it with trembling hands. Eliza, if you're reading this, I've stepped aside, hopefully gracefully. I never taught you to follow my footsteps. I taught you to outpace them. The firm is yours if you want it, or sell it if you don't. But know this, I never gambled on people. I invested in them. You were my best return. Always, Carol. I didn't cry at the funeral, but I cried reading that. Mr. Greaves gave me time. Then he handed me the keys to the house and the firm, both now legally mine. Outside, Sacramento had turned golden with late afternoon light. The streets felt surreal. Lighter somehow. By the time I walked back to my rental car, my phone had already started buzzing. Melissa's sister, wait. Carol left you the firm. Mom, we need to talk. This doesn't make sense. Surely she meant to split things fairly. Dad, can we meet for dinner? I stared at the screen, then turned the phone over and placed it on the passenger seat. Suddenly, the people who once thought I was just the quiet one remembered my name. But I didn't care about the money, not yet. I was thinking about the guest room with yellow walls, the little index card, and the knight on the chessboard that didn't move straight, but still won the game. The boardroom overlooked a small stretch of downtown Santa Rosa, the glass walls catching soft morning light and magnifying everything. The hesitation, the curiosity, and yes, the quiet judgment in the eyes of the 6 people seated before me. They weren't rude exactly, but I could feel the tension humming beneath the polite nods and stiff postures. I didn't blame them. Carol's firm was boutique, but it was tight-knit. A team of seasoned professionals used to working under a steady, private genius. And now here I was, Eliza Shepherd, 28 years old, mostly known as the niece who used to visit and play chess in the break room once a year. I stood at the head of the table with the morning sun warming my back, my palms lightly pressed to the surface. Thank you for being here, I began, scanning the faces. Danielle, the senior analyst, with her hawk-like precision and furrowed brow. Mark, the compliance manager, arms folded and expression unreadable. Ona's, Carol's longtime assistant, who offered the only warm smile in the room. I know this isn't what any of us expected, I said. Carol's absence is personal for many of us, for me especially. That line softened the room just a little, I continued. I didn't come here to take over, I came to continue something she believed in. And if you give me a chance, I'd like to show you what I've learned from her, not just about numbers, but about trust. Danielle raised an eyebrow. Respectfully. Your background is portfolio analytics at a private bank, right? Not firm leadership. Her tone wasn't cruel, but it cut. I nodded. Correct. I led a team of 7 in asset risk review at Landry Financial. Before that, I managed yield reports for Cal State investment funds. I took a breath. But leadership, that started long before job titles. Carol taught me chess when I was 8. When I was 10, she had me mock investing in index funds. She didn't just teach me finance, she taught me strategy, patience, foresight. I met Danielle's gaze evenly. And I may be young, but I'm not here to pretend I know everything. I'm here to earn this with you. Jonas leaned forward. Carol always said potential isn't loud, it's consistent, and she believed in Eliza. That shifted the room. Mark uncrossed his arms. Danielle exhaled slowly. And something in the atmosphere settled, not completely, but enough to let me take the next step. Let's talk about your current portfolio allocation, I said, sliding open my laptop. I spent the weekend reviewing reports. There's an opportunity in the environmental logistics sector, a short-term positioning play based on a pending federal contract decision. If we shift 3% of our mid-risk pool now, we could get ahead of the larger funds scrambling post-announcement. A beat. Then Danielle leaned in. Are you talking about the West Coast Retrofit Initiative? I smiled. Exactly. I've mapped the ripple impact by vendor chain. I'd love your thoughts on the gap projections in sectors 7 and 12. It was like a switch flipped. The energy shifted from caution to curiosity. Within 10 minutes, we were trading notes across the table. Mark offered a compliance check timeline. Jonas dug into Carol's archived vendor contacts. Even Danielle began sketching models on her tablet. By the end of the meeting, no one remembered to question my age. 3 days later, we placed the trade. A calculated, modest position into emerging logistics assets tied to clean energy retrofits. Nothing flashy, just a quiet, precise move, exactly the kind Carol would have made. And by the end of the week it hit. Not a windfall, but enough. A 7.2% return across the slice, beating our projection by half a point and drawing the attention of two hesitant clients who'd been on the fence since Carol's passing. Danielle approached me as I was reviewing final numbers Friday afternoon. "I'll admit," she said, arms crossed, but this time with a smile, "I didn't expect the West Coast play to land so cleanly." "I wouldn't have done it without your projections," I said honestly. She nodded once. "You're not Carol, but you might be exactly what this firm needs next." After she left, I sat alone in the office, looking out at the pale blue sky. I remembered the note Carol had left me. "I never gambled on people, I invested in them." She had invested in me. And now I was doing what she always taught me to do, quietly, steadily, piece by piece, making the board my own. The house hadn't changed. Not the creaky gate, not the porch light with the flickering bulb, not even the way the living room still smelled faintly of lemon polish and pot roast. What had changed, though, was me. It had been almost a month since Carol's funeral and the unexpected inheritance. My days were now filled with market calls and firm-wide memos instead of family group texts that I was never really part of anyway. But tonight, I was trying to show up, to reconnect, to let the past be the past. I stood outside my parents' front door in Sacramento holding two matte black designer bags, gifts for my sisters. A small gesture, peace offering maybe. A part of me still wanted to be seen. The door opened before I knocked. "Melissa." "Eliza." She blinked like I was a glitch in her night. "You actually came." "You invited me," I said, smiling lightly. She shrugged. "Yeah, I mean, Mom wasn't sure you'd, with your new schedule." She said it like I was running a dog-walking business, not a registered investment firm. Inside, the house buzzed with dinner party energy, glasses clinking, laughter from the kitchen. Dad was telling some tired story about how he once grilled steaks in the rain like it was combat. Marla appeared in the hallway, eyeing the bags in my hands. "What's this?" she asked, already reaching for one. "A little something for you both," I said. "Just thought, you didn't have to bring anything," came my mother's voice from the dining room, flat like always. I ignored her and handed the bags to my sisters. Marla ripped into hers like it was a dare. "Wait, is this the Cellini clutch? This is like $800. Melissa glanced into hers and gave a low whistle. "What, did you rob a bank?" I laughed softly, trying not to wince. "No, just doing okay lately." "Doing okay," Marla repeated, voice laced with mock disbelief. "You mean since Carol made you CEO of her little investment thing?" "It's a firm," I said quietly. "Oh, right," she snorted. "A firm." They wandered into the living room, bags in hand, already losing interest in me. I stepped into the dining area, where Mom was fussing over a salad no one would eat. She barely looked up. "You didn't have to get them anything," she said again. "I wanted to." She finally met my eyes. "We don't want you feeling like you have to prove something now that you've inherited." I paused. "It's not about proving, it's just a gesture," she said, going back to her plates. "They already have handbags, Eliza." The comment wasn't cruel, just surgical, designed to cut without leaving a mark. We sat down to dinner. Conversation flowed around me. Work stories, school updates about April's kids, Melissa's recent spa day, Marla's dating disasters. I listened, nodded, poured wine. No one asked how I was doing. No one mentioned Carol. When Dad asked Melissa about her job at the bank, she rolled her eyes. "Still boring, still corporate. But hey, at least I get to decline overdraft fees all day." "She's got the gift of customer service," my mom said, smiling. They laughed. No one remembered or cared that I just closed my firm's first six-figure account. I looked around the table, same wallpaper, same voices, same hierarchy. I was still the quiet one, still the extra chair. We moved to dessert, store-bought pie. Melissa passed it to Marla first, skipping me entirely. A small thing, but small things pile. I watched as they ate, talked, sipped, smiled. And for the first time, I stopped feeling hurt by the silence. I started feeling clarity. They didn't ignore me because I lacked value. They ignored me because they needed me to stay small, predictable, contained. But that version of Eliza, she didn't live here anymore. The sun was barely up when I walked into the firm's main office that Monday, but I didn't need the light outside to feel awake. My clarity from the dinner party hadn't faded. If anything, it had sharpened into something colder, more deliberate. "Morning, Miss Shepherd," my assistant Kayla greeted, already halfway through her first coffee. "Your 10 a.m. with Ledger Systems confirmed. Analyst reports waiting in your inbox." Oh, and the wire cleared. I paused by her desk. Which wire? The Sierra storage exit, closed at 5.5. Net liquidity exactly what you projected. She handed me the printed confirmation, eyes widening slightly. That's a big win. I scanned the sheet. $5.5 million. Liquid. Immediate. I took a deep breath. Carol would have told me to reinvest swiftly. Let capital breathe but not idle. But this move wasn't about fast returns, it wasn't about optics, it was about freedom. I want the full amount placed into a separate trust, I said. Kayla blinked. You're creating a trust? I nodded. In my name, but not for me, for long-term distribution. I'm going to draft the framework myself, purpose-specific, not profit-motivated. She hesitated. Do you want me to schedule with your usual advisory group? No, I said, already reaching for my notebook. I'll be hand-delivering the draft and funds to Sierra Guardian Trust. Kayla's eyebrows shot up. You're hand-delivering $5.5 million. Yes, a beat. Then, okay, do I even want to know why? I gave her a half-smile. Because sometimes you don't send a message, you become one. She looked both impressed and mildly concerned. Should I book private security? Already handled, I said, tapping my phone. I'm not going alone, but this isn't just about the money, Kayla, it's a test. She tilted her head. A test of what? I didn't answer right away. Instead, I thought about my sister's smug laughter at dinner, about Melissa's job at the front desk of Sierra Guardian, about the way she'd once said at a family brunch, trust funds are for people who like to look important. I thought about her teenage years, skimming through my textbooks, mocking me for reading finance books like they're fairy tales. And now she worked at the same company I was about to entrust with 7 figures. A test. Not of her character, I already knew the answer to that, but a test of mine, how far I'd come, how much I'd outgrown the need to be accepted by people who only saw what they wanted to see. You'll see soon enough, I said finally. Have the paperwork ready by noon. I want every dollar clean, documented, and protected under my name before delivery. Kayla nodded slowly. You know, most people flaunt this kind of win. I'm not most people. You really aren't, she said, almost in awe. And that's why this place works now. As I stepped into my office and shut the door, I placed the wire transfer confirmation on my desk and stared at it. $5.5 million. It could have bought silence, or attention, or power. But I wasn't interested in any of those things. I was interested in proof. Not for the world, for myself. The girl who once cried alone in Carol's guest bed was about to walk into the same trust company where her sister joked about overdraft fees, and redefine the entire playing field. Sierra Guardian Trust smelled like cold money and stronger coffee, polished glass doors, white marble floors, soft jazz humming in the background like wealth itself had a playlist. I stepped inside in a tailored charcoal gray coat and low heels. Understated, quiet power. Behind the sleek reception desk, a young man in a silver name tag greeted me with a well-practiced smile. Good morning, welcome to Sierra Guardian. I'd like to make a deposit, I said evenly, placing a slim leather envelope on the counter. His fingers hovered politely. Do you have an account with us? Not yet, I'd like to open one today. He nodded. I'll call someone from new accounts. That won't be necessary, came a voice from behind him. I didn't need to turn to recognize it. Melissa, my older sister, in a navy blazer 2 sizes too tight and heels that clicked just a little too loudly as she approached. She worked here, yes, but not in finance. Customer onboarding. Image management. Pretty words and prettier smiles. She walked around the desk with a slow, theatrical blink of recognition. Eliza, she said, like she was trying out the taste of the name. Didn't expect to see you here. I'm here for a small deposit, I said, sliding the envelope forward. She picked it up delicately, turning it over like it might bite. $100. That's right. Her laugh was sharp and immediate. You came all the way here to open a trust account with $100. There it was. The show, the performance. Always a bigger audience when Melissa was center stage. The receptionist chuckled nervously. Someone else behind the desk smiled. Melissa didn't lower her voice. We don't serve poor people, Eliza. Try the Downtown Credit Union. I felt Kayla's words echo in my mind. Most people flaunt this kind of win. No, not most people, just Melissa. I didn't flinch, I didn't blink, I simply smiled. That, I said calmly, was a test deposit. She frowned. Excuse me. I pulled my phone from my coat pocket and tapped twice. My security team, waiting discreetly outside in a black SUV, received the green light. I looked Melissa in the eye as I said, "Please wait a moment." The glass doors parted behind me with a faint whoosh. 3 men in dark suits entered quietly, 2 carrying sleek duffel bags, 1 holding a tablet. Their movements were practiced. Unbothered, all conversation in the lobby died. Melissa took a step back. "What is this?" The taller man set the first duffel on the counter. "Verified delivery for Ms. Eliza Shepard." The second placed his next to it, then the third, one by one, 6 in total, each bag unzipped, each revealing stacks of bundled cash tightly strapped and clean. The receptionist made a choking sound. Someone dropped a pen. I let the silence bloom. Then I turned back to my sister. "This is the actual deposit," I said. $5.5 million liquid to be transferred into a restricted long-term trust. Melissa's face drained of color. This is a joke." I tilted my head. "Do I look like I'm joking?" She looked around at the staff. They were no longer smirking, they were staring. "I need to speak to the director," she stammered. "Mr. Whitlock he's in a meeting." I nodded slowly. "Then I suggest you make yourself useful and fetch him." "Now." Melissa opened her mouth, then seemed to think better of it. She turned and disappeared down the hallway, her heels less confident this time. I rested my hand on one of the duffel bags and exhaled. There was no applause, no raised voices, just cold marble, stunned silence, and the sound of a carefully executed plan falling perfectly into place. This wasn't about revenge, it was about proof. The shock hadn't settled. 6 duffel bags full of cash don't just appear in a trust company lobby. And yet there they were, neatly unzipped, precisely packed, perfectly legal. I watched as the weight of it, the visual, the number, the message, pressed into the room like a thundercloud. It changed something in the air, in the way people sat straighter, in how they looked at me now, like they were finally seeing a version of me they hadn't been trained to ignore. Melissa stood frozen by the marble counter, her carefully curated expression slipping at the corners. "Eliza," she said tightly, forcing a laugh that didn't quite land. "Okay, so this is some kind of performance art, right?" I didn't answer. Instead, I gently tapped the final envelope Kayla had handed me that morning, transactional paperwork for the trust, fully signed and notarized. I slid it across the polished surface of the desk. "Call your director," I said. "Now." Melissa's throat bobbed as she swallowed. "Mr. Whitlock is in a meeting." "Then interrupt him." I don't think." "Melissa," I said calmly, "I'm depositing $5.5 million in a long-term trust. Either you connect me with someone authorized to finalize this transfer, or I'll find another institution and start my visit here today with a formal complaint." Around us, the staff had grown eerily quiet. Phones still in hand, screens half forgotten. I saw one associate nudge another, whisper something I couldn't hear. Melissa reached for the desk phone, but her hand trembled. She missed the number pad on the first try. When she finally got through, she spoke too fast. "Hi, yes, can you check if Mr. Whitlock is?" "No, I know he's in with a client. Just tell him it's urgent, a trust deposit." "No, I can't explain over the phone, just yes, thank you." She hung up and looked at me, trying to reclaim some version of herself. "You could have made an appointment." I smiled without warmth. "Oh, but this way was more memorable." She flinched. Behind me, the lead security guard zipped one of the duffels slightly closed, then leaned toward me. "Would you like us to move this to a secure vault while you wait?" "Yes," I said, without looking away from Melissa. "Every dollar logged, no mistakes." He nodded once. "Right away." The 3 of them began moving the bags silently down the corridor, heads turning as they passed each frosted glass office. Melissa's fingers gripped the edge of the counter. "You're seriously doing this here like this?" "I'm doing exactly what I said," I replied. "Depositing a trust." "Just didn't think it would ever be me standing on this side of the counter." "I didn't know," she mumbled, eyes flicking toward the hallway where her coworkers had vanished. "You should have told me." "Oh, like the way you told me Mom changed the Christmas plans behind my back, or when you told the family I was cold because I read financial statements for fun." She didn't answer. "Don't worry," I added, my voice smooth. "You're not the one being tested today." Her brow creased. "What does that mean?" But before I could respond, a door at the end of the hallway swung open, and the director of the branch, Mr. Whitlock, stepped out with wide eyes and an outstretched hand. "Eliza Shepard," he called, already crossing the lobby. "I heard we've got a very important transaction today." Melissa stood stiffly as he passed her, not even glancing her way. The shift was complete. I'd walked into her domain. And now, she was the one being ignored. Mr. Whitlock led me through a wide glass door marked Private Client Services, his handshake firm, his tone polished. "Eliza, I can't tell you how honored we are to manage this trust," he said. "I was reviewing the documents as they came in. Your structuring is quite elegant, very Carol." That name hit something in me, not painful, just grounding. "She taught me to think in decades, not days," I said simply. He smiled like that meant more to him than I realized. "Setting up a secure vault transfer right now. Would you prefer the meeting room or the client lounge?" "The smaller conference room is fine," I replied. "But there's one thing I need to do first." He tilted his head politely. "Of course." I stepped back out into the lobby. Melissa was still standing there, arms crossed tight, pretending to scan a form on her screen. But her eyes flicked toward me as I approached, just once, and I saw it, the panic under the surface. I didn't say anything to her. Instead, I pulled out my phone, dialed the number I had saved from Carol's old business card, and waited. The receptionist answered promptly. "Sierra Guardian Trust, Office of Mr. Whitlock. This is Eliza Shepherd. I need to speak with him immediately. It concerns staff conduct and client experience." "One moment." Melissa looked up sharply now. Her eyes darted to the side hallway, to the staff who were still whispering near the copier. I could almost hear the thoughts spinning in her head. No. Not like this, not in front of everyone, but this time I didn't save her. Mr. Whitlock's voice came through the line, surprised but warm. "Ms. Shepherd, everything all right?" I kept my voice steady, just loud enough for Melissa to hear every word. "I'm placing a formal complaint regarding a staff member's conduct," I said. "Specifically, public mockery of a walk-in client based on perceived income." There was a pause on the line. "I see," he said carefully. "And this occurred today?" "It did," I replied. "In your main lobby, multiple witnesses." "I have no interest in public drama, Mr. Whitlock, but I do expect a level of professionalism that matches the weight of the accounts you manage." Melissa's face paled. "I understand," he said. "I'll escalate it to our internal review team immediately. Would you be willing to document the interaction?" "Already have," I said, reaching into my folder and placing a stamped copy of the trust paperwork and a printed memo with today's time and location onto the desk near her. She looked down at the memo like it was made of fire. I ended the call with a quiet, "Thank you, Mr. Whitlock. I'll see you in the conference room shortly." When I turned back toward her, Melissa finally spoke. "You're really going to do this?" I studied her, not unkindly but without apology. "You did this," I said. "I just made sure it wasn't ignored." A few heads turned at that. The whispering stopped altogether. She blinked hard but stayed quiet. And I realized then that it wasn't rage I felt, it was relief. Not because I'd humiliated her, but because finally I hadn't let her diminish me. Not with jokes, not with pity, not with silence. I walked back to the glass doors as Mr. Whitlock reappeared, opening them with a calm flourish. "This way, Ms. Shepherd." Behind me, the lobby was still frozen. Melissa didn't move, but I did, and I wasn't shrinking anymore. The corner conference room was quiet except for the soft tap of Mr. Whitlock's Montblanc pen against the edge of the table. I watched him read through the complaint I'd handed him, 2 printed pages, bullet-pointed, time-stamped, precise, just like Carol taught me. "I want to offer my sincere apology, Ms. Shepherd," he said, finally looking up. "This is unacceptable. Not just from a client service standpoint, but ethically. No staff member should ever feel entitled to decide who does or does not deserve respect." I nodded once. "That's all I came here for. Not drama, not a scene. Just the same standard you'd apply to any client, regardless of what number shows up in their account." Mr. Whitlock leaned forward, his expression grave but composed. "Melissa Shepherd will be suspended immediately pending a formal internal review. She will be asked to surrender her ID badge today." I didn't gloat. I didn't smile. I just said, "Good," he exhaled slowly. "We'll also be initiating a full retraining session for our intake staff. The culture of an institution is only as good as its front-facing people, and clearly we have work to do." I appreciated that. It didn't feel rehearsed. It felt real. "I'd like to finalize the trust now," I said, gently pushing the binder toward him. "All terms are outlined, distribution intervals, philanthropic channels, and independent oversight. I've included language to ensure no beneficiary can redirect or dissolve the fund. Not even me." He flipped through the pages, pausing once. "Scholarships for women in underrepresented financial fields." Carol believed the next generation should have fewer barriers. So do I, he nodded again, this time with something close to admiration. 10 minutes later, the paperwork was signed. My signature on the dotted line didn't feel like ownership, it felt like closure. Would you like a copy delivered to your firm's office or your home? He asked. Office, please. My assistant is already setting up the public statement. As we rose to shake hands, a light knock sounded at the door. A junior staffer leaned in, clearly flustered. Apologies, sir, Miss Shepherd's sister is requesting a meeting. She says it's urgent. I didn't flinch. Tell her I'm unavailable. The staffer hesitated, eyes flicking to Mr. Whitlock. I'm unavailable, I repeated, more firmly this time. She can follow the same review process I did on paper. The door closed again. I gathered the last of my documents and slipped them into my portfolio. Mr. Whitlock walked me back to the lobby, his tone more measured now. Please let us know if there's anything else we can do to rebuild your confidence in Sierra Guardian. You just did, I said. You took me seriously. When we stepped back through the glass doors, the lobby was hushed. Melissa was seated on the far bench near the window, no longer posturing, just sitting. Her blazer looked wrinkled now. Her eyes flicked up when she saw me, searching, maybe hoping. I met her gaze for 1 second, and then I walked past her, heels silent against the marble. No words, no final blow, just distance. Because sometimes, the loudest thing you can do is walk away with everything they never thought you'd earn. It was supposed to be a family dinner. That's what the text said. Just 3 words from Mom, family dinner. 6 p.m., no explanation, no warmth, no context. And still I went. Old habits die hard. The dining room looked exactly the same as it had when I was 13, same floral tablecloth, same chipped dishware, same framed quote on the wall. Family is everything. A motto that somehow only applied when convenient. Melissa sat across from me silent. She hadn't made eye contact once. Her makeup was thinner than usual, and her mouth looked like it had been fixed into a smile earlier in the day and then forgotten. Marla was there too, arms folded tight, scrolling through her phone while pretending not to listen. April, the youngest, sat beside me, twirling a napkin between her fingers. Mom passed around overcooked roast and watery green beans like she hadn't iced me out just 2 days ago. Dad cleared his throat as he poured himself a second glass of wine, and then came the opening blow. You embarrassed your sister, my mother said, her fork barely making a sound as she cut into the roast. The words hung over the table like steam. I looked up slowly. I did. She said you humiliated her, my father added, not looking at me directly. In front of her colleagues. The trust company director called us. I set down my fork. Melissa embarrassed herself, I said clearly, my voice calm and even. I simply exposed it. Melissa flinched but said nothing. Mom's jaw tightened. Marla rolled her eyes. Look, Mom said sharply, we all say things we don't mean. She didn't know it was you, and you could have just pulled her aside. No, I interrupted. Because that's exactly what always happens, isn't it? One of you crosses a line, and I'm expected to whisper from the sidelines, smooth it over, keep the peace. No one answered. I looked at each of them. When she mocked me loudly for trying to make $100 deposit, she wasn't just rude, she was cruel, and she didn't do it because she didn't recognize me. She did it because she recognized the version of me this family taught her to see. I paused. The one who didn't matter, the one who was always quieter, easier to overlook. You didn't have to make it public, Dad said under his breath. But it was public, I shot back. That's the point. You don't get to punch someone in front of a crowd and then scold them for bleeding too loudly. April inhaled sharply beside me. She set her napkin down. Eliza's the only one who's ever treated me like I mattered, she said quietly. Everyone turned to her. I mean it, she continued. You all talk about family like it's this unbreakable thing, but when I didn't want to do pageants, Mom said I was wasting my looks. When I changed my major, Marla said I'd never make it. Melissa's never even asked what I care about. She turned to me, her voice trembling but sure. You were the only one who told me I didn't have to be anyone but myself. I felt my breath catch in my throat. April looked at the rest of them. Maybe we all need to stop pretending we deserve Eliza's silence. The table went still. Melissa's eyes welled, but she didn't speak. Marla finally set her phone down. Mom didn't apologize. She just said, pass the rolls, as if nothing had happened. But everything had. Because this time I didn't sit quietly. I didn't apologize for being seen. And April, sweet, steady April, had shattered the family script with a single truth. When the rolls reached me, I didn't take one. I stood up. "I'm done eating with people who only serve guilt," I said softly. And I left the table without asking for anyone's blessing. The knock on my office door wasn't tentative, but it wasn't the usual confident rap of a client or colleague either. Hovered in that space between hesitation and hope. "Come in," I said, without looking up from the quarterly report. The door creaked open. I recognized the scent before the voice: vanilla hand lotion and citrus shampoo. "Eliza," Melissa said quietly. I looked up, surprised not just by her presence but by her appearance. No makeup. A gray cardigan I hadn't seen her wear since college. In her hands, a folded letter, soft around the edges, and something else I couldn't yet read on her face. She took a breath, then crossed the room slowly. "Can I sit?" I nodded. "Of course." She sat across from me, smoothing the creases in her pants more out of nerves than style. "I don't know how to start this," she said. "That's fine," I replied, setting the report aside. "You're already here." She exhaled shakily, then held out the letter. I wrote it down because I didn't think I could say it all without freezing up. I unfolded it, read the first lines silently. "Eliza, I was wrong. About you. About myself. About the story I've been telling for years, that you were lucky or cold or distant. The truth is, I didn't want to see you clearly, because that would mean seeing myself too." I paused, then looked up. Her eyes were red-rimmed but open, present. "I know an apology doesn't erase what I said or how I treated you, but I'm here now, not just to say sorry but to ask for something." That was the part that caught me off guard. She pulled a small notebook from her bag. "I want to learn. About finance, about investing, about what you've built." She hesitated. "I don't want to be the face at the desk anymore. I want to understand the work. I want to earn what I thought I deserved." I sat back slowly in my chair. For years, I had imagined this moment in 1,000 different ways, some filled with revenge, others with righteousness. But not this. Not vulnerability. Not the quiet humility of someone trying to become better, not just beg for forgiveness. I stood, walked to the bookshelf behind my desk, and pulled out a copy of The Intelligent Investor, the same one Carol had given me when I was 8. The spine was worn, the pages bookmarked and scribbled in. It still smelled like her house. I handed it to Melissa. "Start with this," I said softly. Carol gave it to me before I even knew what the stock market was, and it didn't make sense at first. But what mattered more was that she believed I could understand it. Melissa stared at the book like it was something holy. "Thank you," she whispered. Just then, April knocked gently and peeked in. "You ready for the 3 p.m. check-in?" Her eyes flicked between us. Melissa stood and cleared her throat. "Actually, I was just leaving, but maybe we could talk later, or I could sit in on something sometime." April smiled. "I'd like that." As Melissa left the office, she glanced back once. "Not from guilt," she said. "Just from respect." I nodded. "That's the only way forward." April crossed to my desk and flopped into the chair Melissa had just vacated. "Okay, quick update. I triple-checked the grant application numbers and the algorithm you built for the scholarship pool. Kind of genius." I laughed. "Don't oversell it." "No, really. Carol would have loved it." We sat in silence for a beat, 2 sisters in the present, one guiding us still. The ballroom at the Regency in San Francisco shimmered with soft gold light, floor-length gowns brushing velvet chairs, and the sound of champagne flutes clinking over quiet jazz. I stood behind the podium, hands steady, heart full. 2 years had passed since I walked into Sierra Guardian Trust with 6 duffel bags and a quiet purpose. 2 years since I signed the trust that would become the Carol Shepherd Foundation, a scholarship and mentorship program for young women in finance. And tonight, we were presenting our 10th full-ride recipient, a girl from Oakland who built an entire investment simulator in her garage. The kind of girl Carol would have invited for cocoa and a chess match without hesitation. I glanced down at the card in my hand, but I didn't read from it. I spoke from somewhere older, somewhere clearer. "When I was a little girl," I began, "I thought power looked like attention, like noise, like the people who spoke first and loudest always won. But Carol taught me that real strength often moves in silence." I saw a few heads nod across the room. "She taught me to think in long games. That strategy wasn't about outshining, it was about outlasting." She didn't just build wealth. She built vision. And she didn't pass that down to someone who spoke over others. She gave it to someone who listened. I paused, letting the quiet settle. "Success isn't about how loud you are at the table. It's about what you build when they think you're not watching. There was a hush, then a swell of applause. In the front row, Melissa clapped with tears in her eyes. Her blazer now soft gray, her name badge reading Program Associate CSF. She had passed her Series 65 exam last month. Beside her, April beamed, tapping notes into her tablet. She had 2 more semesters left in business school and already more ideas than we had funding for. Marla wasn't here tonight. That was okay. Some bonds take longer. Others don't heal. And not every story needs a reunion to be resolved. But the 2 sisters who once dismissed me were now building alongside me. Not out of guilt, but belief. And as the lights dimmed for the next speaker, I sat down at our table, knowing that I had finally stepped into my own legacy. Not in Carol's shadow, but in her light. That was the end of my story. When Melissa showed up at my office with nothing but a letter and the courage to ask for help, I had to decide if change was truly possible for both of us. Did she do the right thing by coming to me after everything, or would you have handled it differently? Tell me in the comments. And if this story made you feel something, hit like, subscribe, and stay with me for the next one.